Hi everybody, my name is Kandi and I am here to start documenting my journey in life. I am starting on a weight loss journey and trying to get healthier. So I know there are thousands of channels like this on YouTube already, but I'm hoping to bring a little bit different perspective as far as my lifestyle and what I'm dealing with. So I have been dabbling in the low carb lifestyle since the year 2000. It was the year 2000. I went to visit my sister Tammy, and she actually had the Dr. Atkins book and told me all about it. It was the first time I ever heard of it, and I was super excited. Probably at that time I was over 200 pounds. I was maybe 220. And I remember being at her house visiting for 2 weeks, and I lost 20 pounds in those 2 weeks. So I was really excited. I thought, this is it. This is what's going to be able to make me healthy and skinny. And, that's ultimately what I wanted at that time, was to be thin. And I did not end up sticking with it. So I ended up gaining that weight back and then some. For the last 24 years, I've been on again and off again with the low carb lifestyle, but I never really was serious about it. Now, throughout the years, I ended up gaining a significant amount of weight. I was at my heaviest, I was 280 pounds, right around there, and I was so big. I do have a picture of it, and I need to find it and put it on here for you guys so you can see just how big I was. It was really bad. I remember leaving work and just aching, and it was so hard just to walk to the car. My lower back hurt so bad. So being that 280 pounds, I just felt like I could not get anywhere with diets. I had tried a lot of different kind of diets. I ultimately always went back to low carb, but I always tried like Weight Watchers and Nutrisystem and cabbage soup diet and counting calories and everything. And I just felt like I couldn't lose any weight, couldn't make a difference. It always ended up coming back. So I ended up having the gastric sleeve done. That was probably about 12 years ago. And I went from 280 pounds. I did lose a significant amount of weight in the first 6 months. I was down to 185. I remember being in Wonderland, so in the 100s for the first time in so many years. And I was so excited to be in Wonderland. And then I seen that 185 and I thought, this is it. I'm never going to be heavy again. But it seemed like right when I hit that 185, my weight ballooned, started slowly going up and ballooning up. In the year 2020, right when all the lockdowns hit, I ended up gaining back to 240 pounds. And after the lockdown, when the lockdown first hit, I remember just not caring, sitting on the couch, I'm drinking, I'm eating whatever I want. And I'm like, forget it. World's going to end. Who cares anyways? So after about 2 weeks of that, and I had gained 20 pounds really quick in those 2 weeks, I thought, this is not how I want to be. I'm aching and I have to do something. Otherwise, I'm going to get back up to 280 pounds plus some. Everybody knows when you lose weight and gain it back, it always comes back +5, +10, always more. So I really had to buckle down and do something about it. So that's when I started getting serious about low carb. I started watching a bunch of videos on YouTube and ended up seeing about, I had heard about keto before then, but I really started delving into the keto videos, and that led me to carnivore videos, and it led me to fasting videos. So I started sorry about my clock. It's a pretty clock though. Anyways, every 15 minutes, I better hurry up and talk fast. So I started seeing all of those carnivore videos, and in 2021, I had gotten down to 165, and as life often does, it hits you with curveballs. Things happen, and I didn't end up sticking with it, and I started gaining weight back. So one of the things that had happened is, let me backtrack a little bit. So ever since I was a kid, I always had problems with running. I could never run. I couldn't go up the stairs normally. I could struggle. And I know I walked funny. I climbed stairs funny, could never do a squat, nothing like that. I was never athletic. My parents had taken me to the doctors to see, why. I was fell all the time is another thing. And I, would trip and it struggled to get back up. And the doctors would just say, well, she's just growing. She'll grow out of it. Don't worry about it. Nobody ever did anything. Well, I finally started pushing for some testing, and I found out in 2021 that I have what's called spinal muscular atrophy. So we refer to it as SMA, and there's different types. I have type 3. So probably if you probably have never heard of it, because I know I had never heard of it. So SMA is a genetic condition. It causes muscle weakness, and it causes your muscles to shrink. It causes them to atrophy. So there is no cure for SMA, but there are treatments available. The treatments are not there to improve you so much, but what they do is keep the disease from progressing as fast. So that's the whole object of getting the medicine. The medicine that I'm on is called Spinraza, and what happens is every 4 months, and it has to be for the rest of my life because this is a genetic condition and it doesn't go away. So every 4 months I have to go in to the doctor and get a spinal tap, and what they do is they put a needle through my spine and into my spinal cord, and they withdraw some of my spinal fluid to make room for the Spinraza, which is the name of what I get, and then they inject my spine with Spinraza, or my spinal cord with Spinraza. So it's a spinal tap, and there could be bad reactions to a spinal tap if the hole doesn't heal up and there's some spinal fluid leaking. Thank God I have never had anything like that so far, but it still, regardless, is not a fun process. It is lengthy. Sometimes, I remember one time it took over an hour because the doctor could not get that needle to go through my spine and into my spinal cord. I cannot tell you how many hundreds of times I was poked in that hour, and he wanted to give up, and he said, oh, you're just going to have to come back next week for it. And I thought, no, I'm not. Do it again, because you're going to get it and you're going to give me that medicine. There's no way I'm going to go through this again next week. So ever since I found out that I've had SMA and I've been treated with Spinraza, the doctors have never once mentioned getting any kind of CAT scans or DEXA scans or MRI scans, anything like that, to look at my muscle and to make sure of its level, to make sure it's not degenerating or withering away. So I keep wondering, how do I know I'm even getting better? I don't feel like I'm getting worse, but which is, in Spinraza's defense, that's the whole thing. They want to make sure that you don't get worse. But how do I know it's working? I want to be able to test that. And they've never given any kind of test like that. They do give a physical therapy test where they will give you some things to do, and then a year later you go back and do the same things, and they want to see, at what level you're at. But other than that, they have never mentioned looking at muscle composition through any kind of imaging. And I asked my husband, this is weird, why would they not? This medicine, by the way, is expensive, $500,000 a year is what I was told for the first year. And then it goes down a little bit after the first year, because the first year you have to have more doses, but after that it's every 4 months. So it still is a really expensive drug. And I thank God that I have insurance that covers it. But still, you would think that the makers of the drug and the doctors would both want to make sure that you're not wasting your time and they're not wasting their time and your muscle is being retained. So fast forward to a couple months ago, I subscribed to a channel called Ferrigno Freedom, and the gentleman on there that owns that channel, his name is Dante, and he started talking about sprinting and how this is an exercise that is supposed to really help you. And he started talking about Dr. Sean O'Mara is the doctor that was advocating for it. So that led me to Dr. Sean O'Mara's videos, and I started watching, binge watching all of these videos. Now, one of the things that he does is he takes MRI scans of your body, and he will read your visceral fat, tell you, how much visceral fat. He'll look at your muscle composition, and see about how much fat marbling is inside your muscles. And I am sure that I will probably be one of the worst cases. I'm sure that I'm looking like a Wagyu beef over here because I've never exercised due to me having SMA, but not knowing what it was. I've just never tried. I would try to exercise and I would get so worn out, or I would try to walk faster and my knees would give out and I'd fall and I'd get injured. So it was easier for me just to not do it. I just gave up trying because I didn't know what was wrong. I just thought, well, I'm just not meant to be athletic. But I was really interested in Dr. O'Mara and his approach. I've never heard of anybody doing tests on muscles because the doctors never did it to me. So I never heard of anybody doing scans. And I thought, well, this is something that would give me a starting point, and I can recheck later with MRIs to see if it's even doing me any good to get this Spinraza. And I started researching and looking into his programs. I did contact him and told him I was interested in his program and told him a little bit about me having SMA. So he told me about, what it would cost for the MRIs. And MRIs are not cheap, but I decided it was time that I invest in myself. I have spent my whole life, so I'm almost 50, so I've spent my whole life not worrying about myself. I always take care of other people, and I thought, even though this MRIs are not cheap and maybe his program's expensive, what's really expensive is being taken care of in a nursing home. If I don't do this, if I don't try to do something and get my excess weight off and try to build up muscle, who knows? Maybe I never will be able to because of the SMA, but if I don't try, I'll never know. And if I don't do something at least to maintain what I have, I'm going to end up in a nursing home. I'm going to end up needing 24-hour care because I can't do the things that I need to do for myself. So after reviewing the information on Dr. O'Mara's site and contacting him and speaking with him about the things, slightly about the things that I would need to do to get started to be his patient, I decided that I'm going to invest in myself. It's not cheap. The money, though, for me will be well spent because I've never in my whole life had a doctor that was willing to work with me. And it's sad, doctors are not... Oh, shit. Sorry. It's easier for doctors just to brush you off. They're not in the business of helping people for the most part. So when you find a doctor that's willing to work with you, even though you don't have a lot to give, it's worth something. Oh my God. Sorry, I get a little choked up when I'm talking about it. But I have no doubt that my scans will probably be some of the worst ones, if not the worst ones, that Dr. O'Mara has seen. I mean, I've spent my whole life not exercising, not trying, half-assing low carb. It's time that I get serious about it, because if I don't, I'm going to be a burden to somebody. So I'm going to invest in myself, and I'm going to go see Dr. O'Mara next month. I'm going to fly to Minnesota and get my MRI scans done and learn more about his program. It's not cheap. MRIs are not cheap, and flights aren't cheap, and hotels aren't cheap, and rent-a-cars aren't cheap. But you know what else is not cheap? Nursing homes and full-time care. So if I do not do something, I'm going to be in a nursing home. I'm going to be in a wheelchair, and I'm going to need full-time care. And then one of the last things I want to be is a burden. I don't want to be a burden to my family. I don't want to be a burden to my husband. So I decided I am going to invest in myself and do this. And if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. And I decided to document my journey, and I'm going to put it out there because there has to be other people out there that have never been athletic, never been able to do things that most people consider normal. I know I always find pages, or not pages, I always find channels, and these channels are people that maybe they were athletes in high school, or maybe they were, athletes, they could still do these things, but they were just overweight. Well, this is coming from a person that I have never been an athlete. I have never been in shape ever once in my life. I've never been in shape. So if you'd like to go along my journey with me, like and subscribe, and I will put out videos updating my journey with Dr. Shawn O'Mara and tips and tricks on the things that I'm doing to get healthy. And by the way, today I am 197 point something, 197.6, I think. I'm not sure. So I'm getting back on track. I'd love to take you with me. Hope to see you next time. And in the meantime, stop eating processed foods.